Hi, my name is Sarah Canny, and in today's workout I'm going to walk you through 4 key moves for core and pelvic floor strength in postpartum runners. So to get started, the first thing that we're going to talk about is abdominal bracing. So abdominal bracing is the combination of lifting your pelvic floor and engaging your core. This bracing is something that you're going to want to do throughout each of these exercises. So it's really important to get the feel for what that's like. So the best way to do this is for us to lay down on the mat. And we want our pelvis to be in neutral. So if you're like this, you can see my back is arched. If I come down all the way to the mat and touch my lower back to the mat, and then about halfway between those two is going to be a neutral pelvis. So we want our pelvis in neutral. We want to draw up the pelvic floor, so engage the pelvic floor. We want to turn on the transverse abdominis muscles right here. And then sometimes what happens when we do this is we tend to pop our ribs out. Once you've had a baby in here, your ribs have expanded, and it's much easier for these ribs to go popping out when really we want them to be knit together. So we want them down and together. So pelvic floor drawn up, transverse abdominis engaged, core knit together, ribs knit together and down. And even just that bracing feels like a bit of work. So practice this. So we're gonna relax and then brace, pelvic floor drawn up, transverse abdominis turned on, ribs knit together, and you should just feel this whole core engaged. So that's the position that we want our abdomen in for all of these workouts. We're going to start with bird dogs. So for bird dogs, we're going to be on our hands and knees. So again, you want to brace your abdomen. So pelvic floor up, transverse abs turned on, ribs knit together. And from here, we are going to lift and lower opposite arm and leg, keeping our pelvis and back as steady as possible. If you find yourself wiggling from side to side, if you find that there's a lot of movement, then what you can do is take it down a notch by just doing the leg and arm separately. Once you get a handle on that movement and you feel more stable, then you can go ahead and add in opposite arm, opposite leg. So after bird dogs, we're gonna go ahead and turn it around and do a move called dead bugs, which is basically the opposite of the bird dog. So we're gonna come into this position here with our knees directly over our hips. Again, abdominal bracing, so pelvic floor up and engaged, transverse abdominis turned on, ribs knit together, so this is all turned on in here. And we're going to go ahead and lower, opposite arm, opposite leg. You want to be careful here as you're doing this movement to not let your ribs pop out. So we want to make sure that we're keeping everything turned on. If you find that lowering opposite arm and leg is a little bit too challenging and you've got a lot of movement going on in here, then you can go ahead and either put your hands behind your head and press down into the ground with your elbows, and then simply lower each leg, keeping everything turned on. Or another option is to come up here, and this is a great way to really engage the core, is to press your hands into each other and press up towards the sky. That'll turn all of this on and help you keep those ribs knit together. And from there, you can go back to alternating, lowering each leg. So from here, we're going to go ahead and move onto our side and do side lying leg lifts. So this is a great way to strengthen the hips. So we're gonna come in on our side here, and again, making sure that our pelvis is in neutral. We don't wanna arch our back. We don't want those ribs popping out. We want everything braced and turned on. And from here, we're going to bring our leg slightly, our top leg slightly back. So you'll notice that my toe is kind of in line with the arch of my foot on this side. And then we're gonna go ahead and lift. Now we want the lift to be coming from our glute. If you are going up really high, you're probably gonna feel that glute turn off, and then all of these other muscles are gonna start working. So we're not going for height or range of motion. We're really just going for however far we can get with just our glute doing most of the work. So we're gonna lift and lower, lift and lower. And if you focus on driving the heel, this foot, the heel of this foot and the toe of this foot down into the ground, you're gonna be a little bit more stable. So you're driving, pushing down with this foot on the bottom leg, and then really leading with the glute here up on this top leg. One thing that you can do to help cue that is to also press. Imagine that you're pressing down through this top heel towards the wall, and sort of lead with the heel a little bit will give you a little bit more engagement in that glute. So we'll go ahead and switch sides. And with the side lying leg lift, you can really go to fatigue. So as many reps as you can to fatigue. And you can repeat that twice. Now, once you've managed to be able to do the side lying leg lift while keeping your abdomen braced and strong, you can go ahead and add ankle weights if you have them. This is a great way to increase the intensity and build that glute strength. So again, same position, just a little bit harder with the addition of that weight. So that's a great way to take the difficulty up a little notch. So for our next exercise, we are going to do the bridge pose with several different variations on the mat, but then on the foam roller. So we're going to come down onto the mat. Again, pelvis in neutral, abdomen braced, pelvic floor drawn up. We want all of this turned on before we even go up into our bridge. Now, the same cues that we used with the dead bug for our arms, we can use here. So we can either come in behind our head and press elbows down into the floor, or we can come overhead here, pressing our palms together and pressing that up towards the sky. So from there, from this position, we're going to drive down into the ground from our heels, lifting our neutral pelvis up into the air, keeping everything turned on, and then we will lower back down and come back up, driving through the heel, and then lower and come back up. So this is your basic bridge pose, and from here we're going to add several different variations. So the first variation we're going to add is we'll come up into a bridge pose, and from here we are going to alternate lifting and lowering each leg. So we're going to go ahead and lift and then lower. Lift and lower. Now, one thing you want to keep an eye on eye out for when you're doing this move is whether or not your hips are dipping as you are lifting and lowering. So if you're here and you go to lift and your hip dips down like this, that means we've got a very weak glute on that side. We really want the pelvis to stay level. So we want to stay level through here as we're lifting and lowering. So if you are having trouble doing that, if you're dipping with either hip, and typically one of your hips is going to be weaker than the other, and you're going to experience more dip on the weaker side. So if you're experiencing that dip, then just go back to this bridge, the simple bridge pose, and until you can gain enough strength to be able to do the alternating leg lift without a lot of dip, then you want to stay in that original bridge pose until you gain enough strength to be able to do that. So the next progression of that bridge would be to extend the leg and lift and lower like this. So once you've mastered being able to lift and lower alternating legs without any hip dipping, then you can go ahead and move to lifting and lowering with the leg in the air. Again, driving down through the heel. Use that as your cue. The next variation for the bridge pose is on a foam roller. So if you have a long foam roller like this, go ahead and position yourself at the very end. Come down to laying on the roller. And we're going to start with our hands extended out to the side. Again, brace your abdominal. You'll want to brace your abdomen, so ribs knit together, pelvic floor drawn up, transverse abs turned on. And we're going to go ahead from here and lift and lower our legs like this. Once you've been able to do that without too much wobble, you can go ahead and lift your hands up, pressing them together towards the sky. And then we're going to go ahead and lift and lower here. Now this one takes a little bit more coordination, a little bit more core strength, and a little bit more balance. Another variation is to come up into a dead bug and go ahead and lift and lower on the foam roller. If you can do this one without hands, you gotta let me know, because this one's a little tough. And then you can also increase the speed, which would be the next progression. And those are key core and pelvic floor exercises for the postpartum runner. My suggestion is to do 3 to 4 sets of each exercise. For the side-lying leg lifts, you can go ahead and go to fatigue on those reps. And for each of the other exercises, my suggestion would be 10 to 20 reps if you're alternating 10 on each side.